Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday night. We are now multiple days removed from the NFL draft, but now we're hot and heavy into rookie drafts. I don't know about you, but I got a few going right now, and it's exciting times. It's going to be a fun one tonight. We got lots to talk about. Hopefully, we can make some Packers fans cry at some point tonight. It's going to be a good time, and it's going to be an even better time because we're joined by Ben Condeelis. We've got the pleasure of speaking with him tonight. He is our guest. We are honored to have him. Ben, for those of you that may or may not know you, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. I'm on Twitter as just Ben C, so you don't ever have to remember the last name necessarily. So, yeah, I'm on Twitter for the most part. I'm at the Extra Point FF on Twitter, and I do co-host a live stream every Thursday night. We usually go on same time on Thursdays, 9:30 Eastern time, and we stream YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So we're at 14p_pod is where you can find our live stream. And then I also have a special side project that I'm working on with a couple other members of the fantasy community. We are putting together, this is going to be our first year we're launching it. We're doing a charity event. I know the hype right now is around the Scott Fish Bowl, if everybody's familiar with that. Kind of like I don't want to say a spin-off of that, but inspired by, in many ways, what Scott Fish has done with the Scott Fish Bowl. We created the, and I actually have a shirt on right now, the Brighter Skies Best Ball League. It's a charity league that we're doing, and it's to basically raise awareness to the serious impact of cyberbullying and in part behind that mental health as well. I mean, we're not going to shy away from any of those serious issues, but it was kind of all spurned by cyberbullying and one of our friends, like something that they experienced. So we wanted to not stop the conversation. Basically, it was like you see stuff like that happen online, and everybody's, it's the 15 minutes of news, and then this cycle continues, and unfortunately, people forget about it, and until the next serious thing happens. So we wanted to create an event that was going to basically allow us and everybody else to continue to keep that conversation going. So that's really the idea behind the Brighter Skies Best Ball League. So we have a Twitter handle for that as well. It's at Brighter Skies FF. So all the information, if anybody's interested in getting being a part of that league, all the information's on there.
Beautiful. That's and there's so many great causes that people don't think about until something bad happens. So that's awesome. I appreciate you guys doing something like that. That's a very amazing thing to do because it needs to be done. People need to understand the effects that their actions have. And we see it constantly on Twitter, and you see it from some of the bigger name fantasy football Twitter handles. They're constantly saying things about people's actions and their attitudes. And those are all, the way people treat each other on social media is very much disrespectful and not the way most of them were probably raised. So things like what you're doing is critical. So make sure anybody who's watching, I know we got folks already checking it out and jumping in the chat. Go over there, check it out, become a part of it. It's an awesome, awesome, awesome thing. Mr. Sullivan, you haven't got to chat tonight.
All right,
How's it going, man? How's the Great White North treating you? Are you doing all right up there?
Yeah, it's a little rainy today, a little overcast. I won't lie. I much more sorry about that feedback if that was me.
It does. The hamster's having trouble tonight.
Yeah, the Canadian internet, man. You never know what you're going to get. No, things are good up here. Really looking forward to spending some time with you and Ben tonight. Just want to echo what Brad said. I applaud you guys for putting that charity league together and bringing awareness forward to something that absolutely needs it. There's way too much of that, unfortunately, in this world today, and mental health, is nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be championed. So congratulations to you and your guys, and hopefully we can push a little traffic to your league and get it going.
Yeah, appreciate it on both accounts. Just real quick, not to keep hitting on it, but if you do go to the at Brighter Skies FF and want to sign up, it is it's basically all done through donations. So we're doing a raffle style entry for the league because there's only going to be 16 entries into this league. Eventually, I think we'll have hopes of growing it into unlimited entries or what have you. But this year specifically, it's all done donations. So you donate, all donations are going to the Cyber Smile Foundation, which is it's a nonprofit that basically has resources for those that have been victimized by cyberbullying or to help educate about the seriousness of it. So donate. It's a $20 donation will basically buy your raffle ticket into the drawing for league entry. We've got a ton of prizes and things like that as well that you'll see if you go to the Twitter handle.
I'm already following it. I already got to go over there and do it. I was just checking to make sure while we were talking about it that I didn't forget to go over there, and now I got to jump in and try to do my part to help. So I appreciate you telling us about that, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your support.
Whatever we can do to help, man. That's that's been Roto Eat since day one. We try to help anybody and everybody, whether it's our community or the people that we're connected to and we're friends with, partnered with, whatever we can do to help. Mr. Sullivan, what's going on? What's going on in the world? Tell us what's happening. What are we talking about?
Well, there's a little bit of stuff going on. We had that little event last weekend called the NFL Draft that was pretty exciting. So we'll touch on that tonight. But we'll start it off with a little bit of news notes, and we'll start off with a man who sort of stole the spotlight at the NFL Draft without being at the NFL Draft, and that's Aaron Rodgers, currently the Green Bay Packers quarterback. So my question for you both, and Ben, I'll start with you, is Aaron Rodgers going to be the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers in 2021?
My short answer to that is going to be yes. And I think that I think Aaron Rodgers, of all players and all people, has the most likely situation where he might not. But we see this a lot. We saw it with Russell Wilson earlier this offseason. We see these these relationships go public, and all of a sudden just the world is crumbling and it's on fire. But then you give it time to settle down. Aaron Rodgers gets what he wants. Green Bay sounds pretty committed to keeping him, as they should. And I think that he's a guy that we've seen clearly holds grudges and things like that. So I think that he has probably the most potential out of anybody to push this thing to the point where they have to get rid of him. But I also think that Green Bay is in a position to absolutely not want to get rid of him. I mean, clearly he was MVP candidate last offseason and things like that, or last season. So I think he stays. I think when it all comes down, I think he ends up staying in Green Bay. But if he doesn't, I think that there's still some teams out there that didn't grab quarterbacks this weekend that he could be a good fit with.
Yeah.
Bradley?
It's really interesting to me because obviously he's a public figure. So you typically hear more bad than good when it comes to the personal life and some of the things he's up to. You hear he won't ever talk to his family again and they're miserable and this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. Do I know? No, I have no idea. I don't know Aaron Rodgers personally. If Turd Ferguson wants to be my friend, I will gladly go to Kentucky Derbies with him, but I am not friends with him, so I cannot speak to his personal life. Now, rumors are rumors until they become true. I don't believe it with this situation until I see it, because Green Bay's got the golden ticket to winning the NFC North. I mean, Justin Fields is not going to step in and just take over the North. It's going to take time for him to develop, if at all. I mean, if you believe Nagy can develop a quarterback. We haven't seen it yet, and he's had one. I don't know why Green Bay wouldn't just say, okay, let's figure this out. We're not firing the GM or the front office. We're not going to give in to your temper tantrum, but let's have an adult conversation. Let's talk about it like people, and let's figure this out. I don't see how they can't sit down and go, listen, we got you what you needed. We got you some help in different areas. We didn't go crazy and draft a fullback in the third round like we did last year, and tight ends and all this other stuff. We tried to make smart decisions. Let's figure out what we can do to make this better. So no, long story short, I have no idea what he's going to do, because I have no doubt he could say, I quit, and I'd believe him. But I don't think he wants to quit. I think he loves the game. I think he plays at an elite level. Why would he leave? If I'm Green Bay, I'm doing everything I can. If I'm Aaron, just have a conversation with him. But it's the offseason, so he doesn't have to be in a hurry. Mr. Sullivan, what's your take on this? I know the Minnesota fan, and you probably wants him to just pack up and go home now.
Yeah, so I believe he won't be. There's a lot to this, and there's a lot of layers, and it seems like every day there's something more coming out. It started off with he wants the GM terminated, or it probably started off with a bunch of other things, and it comes down to terminate the GM, I'll come back. There's reports that, when they cut Jake Kumerow, that was the last straw for him. If that's really the last straw for him, he's digging for stuff to make something out of nothing. So he probably ends up coming back. He probably ends up with a nice fat extension in the neighborhood of Dak or Russell Wilson, and in that area of $35 to $40 million a year. I think that probably brings him back. But I don't know, man. Green Bay's actions as an organization don't exactly scream like they want him back either. When they're sitting in the clock with the 27th pick in the first round, if I'm trying to bring back my franchise quarterback, I'm taking a wide receiver there and extending him an olive branch for something that they just didn't do. What did they do? They took a cornerback. The second round, I can't remember what they take, but it wasn't a weapon for Aaron Rodgers. And then they ended up with Amari Rodgers, who I really like, if Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback, in the third round. So I think there's a lot to it. I think it's something that's going to continue to unfold. I don't think we'll learn anything during the offseason programs. I wouldn't bank on Aaron Rodgers being in attendance to any of those, but we'll see what happens. It'll be fun.
That's one way to put it. As the rest of the NFC North on the other side of this video, I would like something to happen. I'm over him. I want Detroit to have a chance, although they won't have it this year, but they're moving in the right direction. What else you got,
Yeah,
Sully?
after a ton of years of Favre followed by Rodgers, I've had enough. I'm done.
I mean, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but I'm a Lions fan as well. So
one pride, baby.
Yeah, man, I'm with both you guys on that, though. It'd be nice to finally see Green Bay know what it's like to maybe suffer here a little bit. They've just absolutely dominated. But honestly, to that point, though, like if you're Aaron Rodgers, some of the teams that he could go to, I mean, you've talked about Denver or Washington and some of these other teams, like the NFC North, like you mentioned, Brad. I mean, there's no other chance that he would have to dominate like he could still in the NFC North, at least this year.
Right.
It's the clearest path that he has to a division title. He goes to Denver. He's in Patrick Mahomes' division, Justin Herbert's division. I mean, he goes to Washington. He's in there with Dallas and their stacked team at this point. So, I mean, the least amount, like the path of least resistance right now is still in the NFC North.
Totally is.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, I could talk about this all night, but I'll move on to the next one. Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman has said that they're going to expand the passing game in Baltimore in 2021. They selected Rashad Bateman in the first round and Tylan Wallace later on in the draft, so they've added some weapons. So what do we expect from Lamar Jackson in 2021? And Brad, this time I'm going to start with you.
That's a tough conversation to have. Now, we did see him take steps last year. He got a little bit better with his decision-making with the ball. I mean, you've seen him grow a little bit. I don't think he'll ever be kind of one of those elite completion percentage guys, but when you give him real targets that aren't just a deep ball threat in Hollywood Brown, he's going to get better. I mean, Rashad Bateman is the total package. He's a great route runner. He's physical. He can do short intermediary routes. He can get those slants going without having any trouble, and that is good for him. So I think Lamar gets better, but I would say I'm cautiously optimistic because between Bateman and Wallace, it's going to take time for them both to get up to speed, and it's not like they're in the softest division like the NFC North. They're facing Cleveland, who got better, considerably better, adding JOK, adding cornerback help, and with Greg Newsome. I mean, it's not like they got worse this weekend. They got better too. Pittsburgh is always a threat. I mean, that's not a soft division they're in. So it'll take some time, but I think Lamar will continue to be Lamar. They're going to run him a bunch. He's going to get more passes, I would think. And, probably in a year or two, you'll see a better return on the investment. But, what do you think, Ben? How do you feel about Lamar moving forward? Can he get more accurate? Did you see anything you liked last year?
Yeah, I think that they definitely should have shown the commitment to throwing the ball more. I don't know. Lamar's not a bad passer to me. I mean, I think he gets a lot more hate than he deserves as far as some of that goes. And I, like you said, their additions clearly show that they're committed to getting him the help. But they also show that they're committed to getting him some help, not just these field stretchers to Hollywood Brown, like you said. I mean, truly the only place to go is up with him. I mean, they only threw the ball 406 times as a team last year. And the next lowest was 440. And then the Browns at 501. So I mean, they were significantly low, not just the lowest passing team in the NFL. So I think that when you add guys like that, and I still think they have some guys that they brought in even over the last couple of years. I'm I still like Devin Duvernay, who they brought in 2020 as well. He's a guy that caught over 100 balls at Texas last year in college. So they've brought in some of these guys that are really good athletes. Tylan Wallace is obviously a really good contested catch guy. You've still got Mark Andrews there. So they have the pieces. So I think that they're going to try it. And I also think that now they've lost Orlando Brown as well. And so I think you've got to protect Lamar. You've got a guy that you have to think about signing to a big contract probably this offseason. And if you're going to just let him continue to run like he has, it's clearly his best weapon. But he's a guy that potentially won't have that availability here over the next year or two if you don't allow him to sit back and throw it a little bit more.
Agree. I think I look at Lamar, I believe he's completed 64% of his career pass attempts, albeit it hasn't been that many, to your point, Ben. But he's shown us the ability to do it. He had an unrealistic touchdown rate in his first season as a full-time starter. But I just kind of wonder if it's like chicken and egg in Baltimore. Do they not throw the ball because of the weapons that they had, or do they not throw the ball because of the quarterback that they have? And I really think it's the weapons. And all those times when Lamar's rolling out, if they can get Lamar throwing when he's on the run, then that's going to be a deadly offense. When you add Bateman and his ability to come across the middle and make things happen with the ball in his hand. Wallace is a contested catch guy. I also like Devin Duvernay. Target your running backs a little bit. I think there's a lot of options in there. J.K. Dobbins can catch the ball and make some things happen with it. So I do think there's an opportunity for Baltimore, but I think they're the reverse of every other team in the league. When they get down, I think they may panic and revert back to the run, and as opposed to when most teams get down, they throw more. So it'll be interesting to see nonetheless.
Well, and remember what they have at offensive coordinator. Greg Roman's a running guy. Like if you look at his attempts passing-wise, he's either 29, 30, 31, or 32 every year since 2011 when he started doing offensive coordinator with the 49ers. So it's not like he's a big passing guy. So they may try to do more, but, a zebra doesn't change its stripes. He is kind of what he is. So I would expect, and fantasy-wise, Lamar's a quarterback one, so it doesn't really matter. If they add more passing, then that's cool. I mean, that opens up to some interceptions, which should potentially remove some of those points. But, I would not be too terribly concerned if I'm a Lamar owner either way. I mean, it's a win-win for him. If he doesn't run as much, maybe he saves those legs a little bit longer. It's a win-win either way. So Lamar owners should be happy because they're continuing to invest in the player, protecting him, giving him weapons. I mean, it's good for him.
Yep.
Absolutely. And as Jaws pointed out in the chat, the Ravens go and get a wide receiver in the first two rounds. The Ravens got the message that Aaron Rodgers has been preaching for
years.
13 years?
Yeah. But see,
totally.
He has
he can't stop talking about
He
it.
has Devontae Adams. So what really can you complain too much about? I mean, Baltimore hasn't had a true stud in how long? I mean, Devontae Adams, you really could run the whole team through him, and it really wouldn't be surprising to me because he's that good.
It's ridiculous if you go back to the last time that the Baltimore Ravens had a top 12 fantasy wide receiver. I did it last year. I can't remember how far back.
Was it Tarek Mason?
I was way back, and it wasn't even a wide receiver. It was a running back who was drafted as a wide receiver. I can't even remember who it was. So it was crazy.
Oh my gosh. I can't even remember. I want to say like Michael Clayton or something like that. I
want to say it was like Jamal Lewis or something, but I'm not sure if it was. So
he was their running back, but
one last little quick news and note thing that I came across on Twitter that I thought was kind of interesting. DK Metcalf is going to participate in the United States track and field games. He's going to run the 100-meter dash on Sunday. My question, if you're the Seattle Seahawks, should you allow DK Metcalf to run this race? Ben?
I think yes. Now, I mean, I'm 31, so I'm kind of like in that in-between age where I'm not too old to where these guys, they owe everything to their organization, or I'm not on the far young side either. But to me, I think it's he's a young guy. He wants to go out there and live his life. He's an uber athlete. He obviously gets paid to do so, but at the same time, he's on a rookie contract. So if he's a guy that just wants to go out there and have some fun, I think yes. And I know that, I mean, really what's the downside is injury, right? That's I don't think there's any other downside besides injury, but I mean, you look at what these other guys are doing in the offseason, and everybody's out here doing athletic competitions. You want to tell me that not on camera, like DK Metcalf isn't probably trying to race somebody, you know, on the track somewhere, you know, where like some of these other guys. So you see it on Twitter all the time. Tyreek Hill's out here talking to Mecole Hardman about racing each other. And it's just outside of like, it's a structured race. I think that these guys are out here doing a lot of this stuff anyway. So I don't see any problem with it.
Cool. Bradley?
Yeah, contractually speaking, unless it says it in the finer print that he can't do anything fun, go do it. You know, when it comes to these players, they're only going to be this physically fit for this, you know, small window of time, maybe 10, 12 years. Do everything you can. I mean, as a guy who blew out his knees playing football early in life, like I would have done everything I could if I was in that peak physical condition. So more power to him. I mean, yes, there's always a potential to get hurt. He could tweak a hammy rolling out of bed. I mean, like the human body is a complex computer that does crazy stuff from time to time. So, you know, more power to him. Go DK. You know, and anybody who does what he does on a regular basis, I'm not questioning him. He could probably pick me up and carry me like I'm a child, and I'm 6'6" and well over the size of he is. So, you know, have fun with him, man. Hopefully he wins. If he doesn't win, then people are going to make fun of it, I would guess, because that's what the internet does. They make fun of the guys that try to race and lose and do all that stuff. So
the fan in me wants to see DK run because I want to see more of him when he chased down, and I can't remember who he chased down in that Cardinals game, but that probably was the play of the year and one of the best plays I've seen in many, many years. So the fan in me, thank you. The fan in me absolutely wants to see it. Ben, I'm 51, so I'm a little grumpier of an older man than you are. If I'm the Seahawks organization, I don't want him to take any part in this. It's one bad step, Lisfranc injury. We've seen Julio Jones battle bad feet for his entire career. Once you get those soft tissue injuries, you don't really shake them very easily. So the fan in me absolutely wants to see him do it because I think the man's a beast and an incredible athlete. But if I'm the Seahawks organization, I don't want him to have anything to do with this. But to Brad's point, it's not in the contract. Too bad, so sad.
That's right. Should have put it in there. And like Brad said, we've seen some of these guys get injured. Like I remember, Brad, if you remember back, Joel Zumaya for the Tigers. Like, what did he like? He hurt his arm playing Guitar Hero, like the infamous story. So like these guys get hurt doing some of like the craziest stuff. And I mean, I don't know if he's gonna get hurt. Like if his foot is like that bad to where like sprinting 100 yards is gonna hurt him, it's gonna happen at some point in his career, anyways. I feel
Good point.
Yeah.
My favorite sports injury of all time is in the National Hockey League, and being Canadian, I'm kind of a hockey guy. Dustin Penner was playing for, I believe it was the Los Angeles Kings, and he hurt his back while he was eating his pancakes for breakfast, and his nickname for the rest of his career was Pancake. So that's my favorite.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm almost at that point in life. Like I'm going to throw my back out eating pancakes soon. So
most of the time playing with my daughters, I feel like I'm throwing my back out. I mean, those kids nowadays just running around,
Good
man.
point.
That's right.
As a Red Wings fan, I've not heard of any of that, but I do remember Eisman getting hit in the eyeball with a puck. So, wow, it could be anything.
That's right.
And
it's one of the best ever.
As a GM and as a player, I very much appreciate his hard work in our front office fixing that. So, but this is not a hockey show, although I could talk hockey all night.
We don't need to take it off. We don't need to take it off the rails. I will turn it over to you now, Mr. Menendez, as that's it for news and notes, my friend.
Yeah. So it is, and that's a fun news cycle. I do want to continue to twist it a little bit. Packers, I hope you lose your quarterback. So we had an NFL draft, and we had some fun this weekend, but we also had some of the weirdest landing spots. Some of the weirdest UDFA situations happen. Like it felt like one of the strangest drafts, and then the Raiders again go above and beyond the weird level by doing crazy stuff, drafting every safety they could get their hands on, but that's for Monday's show. When we look at the draft, Ben, I want to ask you, what was some of the bright spots for you? Some of the things you were excited about when they happened, whether it was first round, second round, third round, it doesn't matter. What are some of the real big things where you're like, ooh, I love that. That really, gets my fantasy juices going. So how did you feel about it?
Yeah, like you said, there were a lot of really weird landing spots. Like doing rookie mock drafts and things like prior to the NFL draft, it looked like this was going to be a fairly deep class. And now all of a sudden it's like you get to like rookie pick like 102, 103, and you're just like, I don't know who I'm taking anymore. But when I look at some of the picks that I really did like, so I'm a big Nico Collins guy. I really liked him landing in Houston, and I know everybody wants to talk about their quarterback situation. I mean, I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not going to talk about Deshaun Watson's situation. Obviously, it's a factor for fantasy, but you look what they did with. They brought in Tyrod Taylor, so I think he's still a serviceable NFL quarterback. If he's Nico Collins' quarterback, I think the competition for targets there is minimal outside of Brandon Cooks. So he's a guy that can easily step into the wide receiver 2 role and potentially see upwards of like 60 to 80 targets this season. So I liked that fit, and I think third round draft capital is pretty solid for him. You look at the running backs, I think they all landed in really awesome spots, at least of the top 3. I mean, really, you could even go as far as the top 4 if you want to look at Trey Sermon. I mean, it's a crowded backfield, quote unquote, but what's it crowded with? Just basically a bunch of guys. So I think Trey Sermon's in a spot in that kind of an offense. I like Javonte Williams' landing spot. When I saw Denver took him, I'm like, man, that's a team. If they can land a quarterback, like we want to keep rolling with the Aaron Rodgers situation. Like if he goes somewhere, if that's a team that lands Aaron Rodgers, man, that's a really, really nice offense. And I'm a big Javonte Williams guy. I don't think at this point in his career that Gordon is much. I mean, he's clearly getting up there in age at 29 at this point. So I like that fit, especially maybe not quite this year, but I see it as potentially like a Nick Chubb situation when Nick Chubb was a rookie and he had to battle with Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde in Cleveland, and everybody was kind of scared off by it. Similar draft capital. But by the end of the year, Nick Chubb clearly talent showed through, and he ended up dominating that backfield. So I could see a real similar situation in Denver for Javonte Williams this year.
What about you, Mr. Sullivan? How'd you feel, and what were some of your big takeaways?
I don't know. I kept waiting for guys to get drafted, and they kept falling down the board, and that is almost the entire draft class as a whole. And this year, I studied this class more than I've studied any class, and I went pretty deep with the team at RotoHeat for RookieDraftGuide.com, and I felt like I knew it was going to happen, and I was surprised. But there were some positives. I also like Javonte Williams' landing spot. I like the landing spot for both North Carolina running backs. I like Michael Carter as well. And there's really nothing ahead of him in New York right now. I don't feel that Tevin Coleman or LaMichael Pirine is going to hold him back that much. So it's a great opportunity for him. And I think the comparison to Chubb is bang on and perfect. I think that's exactly what we're going to see there. As the season goes on, Williams will slowly push Melvin Gordon to the sidelines. Except I think they have a quarterback. I just think they need to untap Drew Lock. I'm one of the last people on the planet outside of the Lock family that still believes in that quarterback. So, but hey, if Aaron Rodgers wants to go traded to the Denver Broncos, who am I to say no? Wide receiver wise, I really liked where Jalen Waddle landed. I'm a big Kyle Pitts guy, so I don't think he could have landed in a better spot. And another sort of under the radar tight end that I know our boy Craig is a fan of is Hunter Long. I like him landing in Miami with Gesicki being a free agent at the end of the year. It gives the Dolphins some options, and it also gives them some options to run some 2 tight end sets. I really liked what I saw from Long at Boston College. He just seemed to really get in position to receive the ball well. So those are some of my takeaways. And I guess on the sad side of it, I was hoping that Jalen Darden would land in a spot where he might have a chance to have a little bit more of an impactful role. Small school guy, North Texas, crazy with the football, shifty as shifty can be. And I was hoping that I would see him more than not this coming season. In Tampa, he's really buried on the depth chart, especially with them bringing Antonio Brown back. So that's the highs and lows kind of for me. How about you, Brad? What'd you take away from the weekend?
I feel terrible for wide receivers. You know, a lot of the wide receivers in the class hit strange spots. You know, obviously Ben nailed the good one. Nico Collins from our Ann Arbor University of Michigan went to Houston, and that's a cool spot for him. I don't care what anyone says. The team still is going to be on the field. It's not like you're not going to have an offense on the field. So somebody's throwing the football, and it's probably Tyrod to start, and maybe Davis Mills if they feel like they're getting something out of him or they like the way he's developing. But somebody's going to be throwing the ball. Brandon Cooks, I have Brandon Cooks in one league, and we're in the middle of a draft, and folks have kind of started talking a little bit about what's his value, and I'm like, he's still a wide receiver 2 at the worst for me because his amount of targets should still be very, very solid. And I like what they did with Nico Collins. I love that they snagged Brevin Jordan. He was a tight end that I liked. I'm a Devy guy here at Roto Heat, so I liked him a year ago. He didn't test well, and his pro days and all of that looked bad. But when you watch the tape, this kid's electric. He can do some things with the ball in his hand. It's like that. The football speed is different than what you saw at the combines and pro days and all those things. So I like what Houston did, but the receiver class as a whole, I mean, there were some really strange landing spots. I did love what our Lions did, getting Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that's a cool fit because he can play inside, he can play outside. He should be able to step in pretty quickly and at least be the slot receiver. Sorry, Quintez Cephas, I was a fan of you until they drafted Amon-Ra, and then you're just not as electric. Michael Carter's been the most surprise for me because people are still letting him slide down the boards. I had mentioned it in the Roto Heat Discord server yesterday. I got him at like the 207. He's probably going to be a very heavily involved running back at the 207 spot in a league that isn't Superflex, but it's going to be. So people are drafting it like it's a Superflex. It's converting to Superflex next year. So quarterbacks did go hot and heavy, but a starting running back in the end of the second round or later second round is just crazy value in my mind. Because I think of all these running backs outside of Najee, he has the best chance to produce now because the Jets don't have a lot of competition. LaMichael Pirine is not bad, but he's not great either. He's more of a between the tackles plotter kind of guy where Michael Carter can do both. He can go between the tackles and he has enough juice to get outside. As an overall whole, I like a lot of the tight end spots. I was surprised even guys like Trey McKitty and Tommy Tremble going to spots where they're probably starters or at least competing for starting time. So the tight end class, I think, as a whole, got a bump in this draft, the way they all fell. So if you're in tight end premium leagues, this is good for you. I'm the Roto Heat 96er. I got Pat Freiermuth and Hunter Long. I'm loading up on tight ends and tight end premium because Gesicki's on his last year of his deal with Miami. So what if they don't bring him back? You've got a starting tight end in Hunter Long. Pat Freiermuth, well, Eric Ebron's in front of him, so he's not only going to get a few games of real good value in fantasy, Freiermuth could get hot and heavy in that offense quickly. So I would encourage you guys to not sell this class short because it does have some quality in it, but you've got to work this draft board because it's crazy how quickly the value falls off. I mean, it's first round, and then after that, you really have to pick and choose your spots.
So true. I just before we started, I was picking in a one quarterback league. I think I had the 203, and I didn't know what to do.
Right.
I really didn't know what to do. I'm like, man, this is not like years gone by kind of thing. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because we had so many guys slide further than I thought they would go. So
absolutely,
we'll see. It's gonna be interesting. And who knows? Like scouting was obviously not normal last year. Nothing was normal. Still isn't. So we'll see. But it's interesting to me how there's sort of a death valley, for lack of a better term, in those spots in your drafts right now.
I feel like this is going to be a class that's going to be really interesting to look back on and say, like, wow, I can't believe like we got this guy in like the late second or third round because like you said, I mean, the scouting and things like that from the NFL teams that went into this class it was so difficult. They didn't get the face-to-face. They didn't get, to bring the guys into their, their facilities and things like that. So I think there's going to be guys that go late and we just didn't realize like, wow, okay, that guy really, like that team liked him and he stepped into this role. And there's going to be some guys that went like 6th, 7th round that are probably going to end up stepping into a role here. But like, I don't know who specifically, but it's going to be fun. And I think it's going to be a fun class to look back on.
Yeah. And we worked on articles for the site this week for kind of UDFAs to look at, kind of the who's the next James Robinson, but not really because James Robinson's a bit of a unicorn, yes. And there are some UDFAs that could get in and get some playing time, when you look at their spot. I mean, and players that were late drafted or as UDFAs. I mean, think about a guy like Javian Hawkins who went to Atlanta. I mean, Mike Davis and then Quadre Allison. I mean, like we know Davis is going to be their starter, but that's a quick drop off because Mike Davis has been consistent, but he really hasn't, other than last year, had to be the guy where teams are focusing on taking him out of the game plan. So a player like that, I mean, is a sleeper type guy in my mind that I'll probably grab a couple shares of late in drafts to see if anything hits. I like what some of these teams like Detroit, they took extra receivers, undrafted guys like a Jonathan Adams. Jonathan Adams is a small school guy, but he reminds me of Kenny Galladay when you watch that film. Super physical, can do a little bit with the big play ability, averaged like 14 plus yards per catch. And he was heavily targeted. Things like that. Like those are the things that you have to look at in this draft because there will be some sleepers and could very well can be a larger amount of sleepers in this draft just because of, like our buddy Ben here said, it was hard to scout. Things were different, a lot more virtual, a lot more, combing through and not so much face-to-face. So it's interesting. It'll be a fun challenge to see which teams did it right and which teams didn't.
Your Lions had a good draft. I somewhat pains me to say that they had an excellent draft, and they continued it after with their undrafted free agent signings. So nice to see for you guys. Long suffering.
No, well, 2014 feels like a long time ago. Our boy Josh says, how much does Gainwell eat into Sanders' production, and can Gainwell be viable? Ben, how do you feel about Kenneth Gainwell?
So I think that I think he does more to make Boston Scott basically irrelevant in many ways than he does eat into Sanders. Now, Sanders has not proven to be the best pass catcher. Right. And I think that to make the easy connection, you look at their head coach coming over from Indy, and you've got the Naheem Hines comparison. But it's an easy one to say, but I think it also makes a lot of sense and clearly why they would have grabbed a guy like Gainwell. He's a guy that I definitely liked going into this class. And you want to make maybe a same school comp, and a lot of these Memphis guys have come out like Antonio Gibson last offseason. So I don't think he's going to eat into the rushing share of Miles Sanders, but he is a guy, and it's one of those fits that makes you go, okay, like maybe I need to take a second look at Miles Sanders and maybe knock him down a couple of spots in my running back rankings, because I do think Gainwell is a very capable receiver, and he's a guy that I think that they're going to want to bring in that Naheem Hines type of role in Sirianni's offense.
Mr. Sullivan?
Never really been a huge Miles Sanders guy, but that doesn't mean he's not a talented back. I think his biggest challenge is being on the football field and staying healthy. It's Gainwell's a nice little multi-use running back that who knows, maybe the Eagles line him up in the slot and take advantage of his pass catching abilities. They drafted Jameer Jefferson as well later on, did they not? Is that where he went?
No.
The Eagles drafted somebody else later on. Or is it Raheem Boyd?
Jamar Jefferson.
Who the heck?
Jamar Jefferson and Raheem Boyd are in Detroit. Jamar Jefferson. Yeah, Jamar Jefferson took him. We took Jamar in the 7th round, and Raheem was at UDFA.
Philly took somebody else later. I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. But Gainwell's like one of those guys that I kept refreshing my phone and going like, did he get drafted yet? Like, where is he? I was very surprised to see him slide the way that he did. I had him a lot higher in my rankings pre-draft than I do post. I don't think he eats too much into Sanders, but he's a nice change of pace running back, in my opinion, that can catch the football as well as make some things happen out of the backfield. So he's another weapon for an offense that hasn't had any for quite a long time. So we'll see what he does. But if Miles Sanders is healthy, I think Miles Sanders is going to be the primary ball carrier there.
Yeah, when you look at the way this offense is going to have to run, you've got a basically rookie quarterback. Jalen Hurts hasn't gotten a full season worth of action yet. They're going to have to run to set up the pass, to give him time to see what they have in him. Because if you throw him out there and you're expecting him to just do a ton of throwing, you're going to get this kid hurt, because that offensive line is in flux. I know they added one center to try to help them out, but they have other positions of need there in Philly along the offensive line. So Sanders is going to get heavily involved. I could see a situation where Gainwell gets, probably anywhere 8 to 12 touches a game, and that's probably more so in the passing game than it is running the ball, because he's probably going to, to Ben's point, say, take over Boston Scott's role in time. But remember, they drafted him in, the 6th round, 5th round, something like that. He wasn't exactly an early pick. So it's going to take time for him to get up to speed. They're probably not banking on him being involved early, but I would still target him because, all of us were fans of Gainwell pre-draft. So I would definitely take some shots on him. And there's lots of running backs like that. Elijah Mitchell went to San Francisco along with Trey Sermon. He'd be a guy I would grab a couple shares because it's not like Sermon's been the most healthy running back. So, guys like that, you're going to get late in your drafts or later in your drafts. Gainwell, I think, is actually what I've seen in real drafts is third round right now. And I'd be willing to take a shot on getting a few of those shares in the third round, Superflex or 1 QB, and just see what happens. So there you go, Josh.
One injury away, right?
Absolutely. Well,
he's just one injury away.
Absolutely.
That's right. He's a high-end handcuff for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when it comes to, we haven't really talked about the quarterback class, so let's make sure we talk about it. Obviously, everybody knows Trevor Lawrence is the man, but then in the second round, there was 3 quarterbacks that went kind of surprisingly. Everyone kind of expected Kyle Trask to be in the second round, but we really weren't sure we were going to see Mond and Davis Mills get involved. Ben, how do you, now obviously this is probably more Superflex focused for our Superflex friends out there, but How do you feel about these guys? Do you think they went into situations that might benefit them long term? Are any of these guys even worth taking a shot on in your mind?
I mean, I think that my philosophy is anybody at the right price. And like we've been talking about, like you get past like the 202, like 203 in your drafts, and it's a lot of guesswork right now. And so I think like if I get to the third round of my rookie drafts and I'm in a super flex, these are guys that I have no problem taking a shot on. I think Davis Mills is somebody that I'm absolutely interested in based off of the situation with Deshaun Watson. I think that regardless of how that plays out, it seems at least some fairly likely that he's not going to play in Houston, whether it's because of legal situations or because of a trade. So his competition right now is Tyrod Taylor, and I think they kind of spent decent draft capital on him. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think he's definitely a guy that has probably one of the earliest paths to play time from that group. I mean, the other guys, I don't know if anybody's in a great situation that I see really having a potential to play or have any kind of an impact before like year 3. I'm trying to think of which one of the guys went to Minnesota, Rob?
Keelan Mond.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, Keelan Mond. So I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a serviceable to good NFL quarterback. So I don't necessarily see a path to play time for him unless they just decide all of a sudden, like, we're not going to re-sign Kirk Cousins. We just really like what we saw at him on. And then you got a guy that went to Tampa Bay. All their names honestly kind of crossed me up
Trask,
a little bit
Trask,
at that point. But
yeah,
Trask. So Trask. But I mean, how long is Brady going to play for? So, I mean, I think they're all in situations that just have major question marks outside of Mills. So if I'm going to take a shot at anybody outside of the top 5, I honestly think Davis Mills is the one that I would look at.
Well, you, Mr. Sullivan?
I agree. When I look at them as a football talent, I would put Trask on the top of that mountain, and then I would follow it with Mond, and then I would follow that with Mills. But at the same, when we look at it from the fantasy perspective, pretty much exactly what Ben said. I see Brady playing for 2 more years. Cousins is interesting because he is finishing up that fully guaranteed deal at the end of this season. Mond, I like his dual threat ability, and it could bring something to the table there. But I just don't see the Vikings with their situation turning the keys of the car over to him anytime soon. So it's Davis Mills. Like, Tyrod Taylor, who knows? Ryan Finley certainly isn't the answer. For whatever the situations and the reason is, Deshaun Watson is probably either dealing with some legal ramifications, getting traded, or refusing to play. So I don't see him on the football field this year. So he's probably the fantasy quarterback that I'd want out of the 3, and everywhere I try to get him, which is like early 3rd in Superflex, I'm a pick or 2 late every single time. I have managed to get, I believe, 1 share of Mond, and Trask I'm just fading altogether, to be honest.
Well, and looking at those picks, Trask was the one to me. It was like, okay, he doesn't really fit what Bruce Arians tends to do with the football. It makes me feel like Arians, Brady, all of them are going to kind of ride off into the sunset together. And this is like him going to Byron Leftwich and going, okay, which quarterback do you want to start with when you take over and take, like, if that was how it was going to go,
yeah,
that was kind of what I was thinking when that pick came in. Cause when it first happened, I was like, he's not really a Bruce Arians quarterback. I mean,
Yeah, I thought it was a weird
yeah,
pick.
it seems strange. The one that was interesting to me is not those three per se, but Sam Ellinger going to the Colts. So Sam Ellinger is a quality quarterback. He's not the most. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He went quite a bit later than everybody else. I think he was like a 6th-round pick to Indy. But the guy's a winner. He's a smart dude. He knows how to run the offense. I don't want to call him a game manager because he's not really a game manager because he's athletic. He can do some things on the ground. He was an interesting pick. Like if Wentz doesn't work out, I could see them going, okay, Ellinger's a guy we can work with. A young kid, smart kid, came from Texas. He has all the intangibles outside of. I don't know that he has the biggest arm. When I watched his film, I wasn't wowed by what he was doing with the ball, but I think he's an interesting one to take a late flyer on. 4th, 5th round, see what happens because everybody's excited about Wentz. He's meeting up with his old OC and things like that, but it's no sure thing. Davis Mills, I feel bad for. Like, I like the kid. Seems like a really smart individual, but he's an average athletic ability, and Houston's offensive line is just really, really it's
Trash.
in turmoil. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
in turmoil, to say the least. So Davis Mills probably has the best chance of playing sooner rather than later, but it's probably because Tyrod Taylor got hurt and he won't be far behind because they're going to be running for their lives. So it's
point.
interesting to me, but take flyers on them later and try to flip them and get better return on your investment. Why not? I mean, basically after the end of the 1st round, I'm willing to trade any of my picks for future picks if I can get the right price because this draft, like we said, so many strange spots. So many strange spots.
Yeah.
So what we didn't see, and one that we haven't talked about at all was probably the strangest pick of the draft to me was the Rams' 1st pick. They went with Tutu Atwell, a great kid, great player, super tiny, and they didn't need another receiver. Ben, what do you make of what the Rams are doing, and how do they protect Matthew Stafford because they still don't have an offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's probably the most puzzling pick of the whole draft. I mean, I don't even remember how tall he is, but I know he's like 150 pounds soaking wet. And so like it's a really just odd pick. I don't know if that's a pick that you make just for special teams production and something like that. I mean, they brought in Deshaun Jackson too, and they still have Van Jefferson, who they drafted last year. So like, it's just one position that I feel like they didn't need, and they took the smallest guy they could have taken. And it's really odd, but I don't know. I mean, he's not a guy that I'm looking at for fantasy purposes. I think that he's a guy that they might use, in some gadget situations, returns, things like that. But he's not a guy that I'm really having a lot of interest in. I don't know. It was just a weird one. I don't get it. Like you said, I mean, between that one and honestly, the Eskridge pick to me as well in Seattle, when I know that Jalen Mayfield was sitting on the board. I mean, Seattle's improved their O-line, but I mean, Mayfield was a guy that a lot of people had projected in potentially the 1st round, and he was staring Seattle in the face right there. And that was an odd one to me too. So I don't know what either of those teams were thinking. I mean, the draft capital is awesome, but like, I think that Tutu Atwell could be like a Mecole Hardman type in some ways for them. Like the Chiefs took Hardman when they didn't necessarily need a receiver, maybe similar skill set, and just like a guy that maybe they see as having just sort of this like couple catches, may catch a long touchdown every 3 games type of role.
About you, Mr. Sullivan?
I think it was an odd pick, and the only thing that I can really think of is Robert Woods is getting a little up there. I believe Cooper Kupp's coming to the end of his deal if he hasn't re-upped it. I'm not entirely sure. And they don't have a whole lot of cash in Los Angeles. They're pretty cap strained. So perhaps this one's a little bit further down the road type of investment, and he can hang out on special teams and return some kicks. And hopefully he doesn't get hit too hard because he isn't the biggest guy. Like, there shouldn't be very many guys in the league that are way less than me. Let's put it that way. So I do think it was a bit, not so much the pick, but where they made the pick. They've traded away countless 1st-round draft choices, and Sean McVay's never made a 1st-round pick as the head coach of the Rams, which is wild. And I think, how many more did they have they given up to you boys for like 2 more, isn't it?
Yeah, the next 2 years.
Yeah, so there's a lot of holes on that Rams team that scream filling, and most of them would be the offensive line to me. But we'll see. It was a little bit strange, but it was kind of a strange draft in general. So I guess I didn't notice it too much, but now that you mention it, Brad, it was a little bit of an eye raiser.
Well, I mean, especially with what was going on, where they picked. I mean, there were plenty of other options on the board for them. It didn't make any sense to me why they did any of. I would say most of their draft picks were kind of surprising, not Raiders surprising, but just odd based on what the team is a playoff team. They've added Stafford. They're expecting to compete for the championship. Don't go get him a receiver he's not going to use. Like what? So.
Are they gonna add a wide receiver and because now with Higbee there, it's probably all one tight end. Are they gonna go 4 wide or I don't know.
Well, but even if they do, they have guys ahead of him. I mean, like Ben.
Well, I guess Deshaun Jackson's probably on the field.
Well, yeah, Ben mentioned, you got D-Jax, you got Van Jefferson. I mean, there's and Van Jefferson. I mean, when you listen to Jalen Ramsey, he's hyping up Van Jefferson more than anybody. I think he likes him more than Van Jefferson's parents have liked him. I mean,
I forgot all about Van Jefferson. So you're right, that is a weird.
Very weird.
I think especially when you look at some of the receiver type that Stafford's had in his career, and it'd be nice to see him play with some of these speed separator types, but a guy like a Nico Collins or a Amon-Ra St. Brown would have made a lot more sense with Matthew Stafford's game than a 5'5", 150-pound receiver.
Well, absolutely. I mean, he likes those big targets. I mean, think of what he's enjoyed having. Kenny Galladay, CJ, he likes the big receivers that with the big wingspan.
Yeah.
On the other side of things, I thought the Chargers had a really good draft for what they needed, but then they go and draft a tight end who, friend of the show, Steffi Smalls, talked up like he was the second coming, Trey Mckitty. So, Sully, I'll start with you on this one. How do you feel about Mckitty? He basically steps in and almost is their tight end one because, well, Hunter Henry is now playing dynamic duo with Jonnu Smith in New England, and they don't have a lot on the roster. So what do you make of that?
I don't know. That's the short answer. Jared Cook did sign there as a free agent, so they'll probably get 1 year out of him, and he'll probably be like the last few seasons of Antonio Gates, just kind of primarily a red zone guy. Donald Parham, is that his name? Who's the old XFL guy? I think he's kind of fun. I'd like to see him do something. Mckitty, I don't know. I don't really know much about him. I believe his college career really didn't come alive until this last year. And Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, he was in Georgia last year?
Yep.
Nice. Got one.
Got it.
So I think like 90% of his college production was in this year. So I don't know if that's system related. But he showed he could catch the ball this past year. And by all accounts, he had a good Senior Bowl. So maybe that's what catapulted him into this spot. Don't think that's one of the Chargers' bigger needs, but at the same time, maybe the new system in Los Angeles wants to run a little bit more 2 tight end sets. Maybe McKitty stays inside and blocks a little bit more. Parham goes out and runs some routes. I don't really know, but we'll find out. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I didn't look a ton into like the depth of this tight end class, and so he's a guy that I didn't watch much of. I know he had like decent testing numbers when he did test. I was just pulling him up. I mean, he's, I would say, average athlete as far as that goes. So, I mean, it's not like it was a bad pick from that standpoint. Like you said, you've got Jared Cook, who's got to be 33, 34 years old now at this point. So, I mean, I like the fit. Like if I'm taking shots on guys that might have potential after this year, I like the fit with Justin Herbert. It's clearly going to be a good offense with him. You've got Mike Williams, who may or may not be long for that team as well. So they're going to need to re-up their pass catchers, I think, after this season. So I think that McKitty's a guy that could step into potentially a starting role. But I mean, Parham's a guy that I really liked as well. And I know a lot of people were hyping him up prior to this, offseason really getting rolling. So I think he's going to be competing with Parham, but I mean, neither one of them. I mean, McKitty went in the 3rd round. Parham was a late or an undrafted guy, but I mean, if I'm taking flyers on this tight end class, I don't mind it. I mean, give me anybody that's going to be linked to an explosive offense for the next 3-4 years.
Totally.
Absolutely. And, McKitty was a bit of a case of wrong place, wrong time throughout college. He really factors as kind of a move tight end. You know, he probably is more of a pass catcher than he is a blocker. I mean, he can block, but he's not great at it, which for fantasy is amazing. You know, I don't want my tight end to know what a block is. I want him to catch everything, you know.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
but I think you guys are absolutely right. This is more of a long game here. If you're going after McKitty, he's probably not going to be, you know, tight end 2 conversation this year because he's probably going to be on the depth chart a little bit lower, below guys like Jared Cook and Parham and some of them. And I think they still have the kid that was in Cincy for a long time. I can't even think of his name. Charles? I don't remember. They have lots of tight ends on the roster, but none of them really stand out as anything spectacular. I think McKitty can quickly move up the depth chart if he picks up the offense and can do some things. And ultimately gain trust with Herbert is what's going to get you the attention. So
Totally.
I think that's a fun spot, an interesting one to keep an eye on. You know, like I said earlier, him and Tommy Trumbull and Hunter Long and some of these guys that got drafted after, you know, Pitts and Freiermuth, they all landed in spots that I think are intriguing. So if you need tight end help, I mean, this draft fell really nicely for a lot of tight ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be able to get him at a good price, to your point earlier as well, Brad.
Absolutely. So that's it, people. It's almost 10:30. This hour went by quickly.
Crazy.
Went very quickly.
Yeah.
I thank you guys. Everybody in the chat's been hanging out and shooting over and chit-chatting and everything like that. We do appreciate it. If you haven't already, make sure you do the like, the subscribe, the notification icon. Do all the things I tell you to do every time you see me on a video. YouTube loves that stuff. It's not just because I enjoy saying the same thing over and over again. It's to tell YouTube how much you appreciate what we're doing here. With that being said, I close the show out with our guests all the time this way. You tell them everything that's going on, Ben. We appreciate you hanging out with us. It's been amazing having you on, buddy. The floor is yours. Tell them everything you want to tell them about everything you got going on.
Yeah, totally appreciate you guys having me on. Had a blast.
Absolutely.
For sure. It's the NFC North hour here, so it's it's been a good time. But as far as where you can find me, mostly on Twitter, I'm at the Extra Point FF on Twitter. Name is just Ben C on there. I do co-host a live every Thursday night at 9:30. We are the Dynasty Double Wing is our pod name. So we're a Dynasty show, and we are, the handle that you can find us at is at 14p_pod. So we're kind of part of a network of a couple of different pods on there. So that's where you can find me. I'm tweeting all the time because where you see me right now is my bedroom / studio / office / everything else right now. So usually pretty active on there. Also, a shirt I'm wearing, I know you can't really see it based off of my setup. It is the Brighter Skies Best Ball League charity event that we've got going on. Twitter handle for that is at Brighter Skies FF. It's going to be a best ball league that we're going to actually draft it live during a podathon. So a bunch of folks going live like we just did over the last hour. We've got different people from the fantasy community on Twitter hosting hour-long segments, just talking about cyberbullying, mental health, pretty much anything that's important to them as far as like that space goes. And we're also going to be talking about the draft picks of this best ball league as they're made. So I think it's going to be fun.
Sounds
Basically breaking down like ESPN and NFL Network do during the NFL draft. Just kind of talking about the picks and things. So if you're drafted in this league, you can watch on YouTube or Twitter and listen to everybody talk about your picks as they're making them.
That's awesome.
That sounds
That'll
awesome.
Be fun. That'll be cool.
So, yeah.
If you haven't already, you better go follow him. Everything he's doing on Twitter, support these people, show them how much you appreciate them by being a part of everything they got going on. We thank you guys as always for hanging out with us. You know what we do here in the off season. We are streaming at least 3 nights a week. IDP, Devi, Dynasty. We talk a lot of different fantasy outlets. We are here to help. Don't forget, check us out on Discord. Check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, all the things that I talk about every week. Main site, rotoheat.com. If you need rookie info, rookiedraftguide.com. We are adding more profiles to those guys that got drafted that we did not expect to get drafted. So those
We only watched 108 guys.
we only watched 108 offensive players, and those of us on IDP did IDP as well. So make sure you go check those things out. Thank you guys as always. We've got some great guests coming up in the next few weeks. We've got a Whalen sighting from what I hear. We've got lots of fun guests coming. So make sure you have subscribed so you can stay up to date. We love you guys. We will talk to you again soon.